Hey folks, today we're going to edge band some 3/4 plywood. The tools that you're going to need are an iron, regular clothes iron, without any water in it. You can set it at the highest settings. I normally do that, but I don't keep it in one spot for nearly long to burn anything. A small roller like what you'd get for seam roller, actually it's what it says, seam roller, to flatten out the glue once you get it on there and heat it up. A pair of side cutters to cut the edge banding to length. A utility knife to trim the edges. And of course your edge banding, which I got mine on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description so you can find it there. And then your stock, which I've already got cut to length. And I've chosen the edge that I'm going to edge band. And you'll also need a cutoff of plywood or something similar that you can use the end to stand it up and trim off the excess edge banding. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get the camera set up and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to get our first piece mounted up in the vise here. Like I said, I've already got my edge picked out, and we're going to go ahead and get it in here and get started. Doesn't take much pressure, just enough to hold it so it won't move. Okay, and we get our piece of edge banding, and it doesn't have to be exactly, I have plenty, so we're just going to cut it off to a good length. Set it up here, and we'll get our iron out. And I like to start on the end and get it set. Get that glue rolling. Get it pressed down. And then we'll go ahead and do the rest of this side. And I'm just giving some nice even pressure across it. Nothing too heavy. Just enough to heat up the glue and press it down into the grain. A little bit of movement here. We'll line it back up. And we'll give it a good roll. Press it down. You just want to make sure you leave enough on the top edge that you can plane down the edge banding and make it flush with the top edge. And the back edge, bottom edge, is not as significant. You can leave more hanging off there if you'd like. It's just less work on the top side. And if it's going to be hidden, then it's no big deal. So that's cooled down. We'll go ahead and take it out. And we'll set it aside. If you do set it aside like that, make sure you're not sitting it flat with the edge banding and the piece flat on the surface. You might pop the edge banding off. So we'll do one more here. Make sure your edge is nice and clean so that the glue doesn't have anything under it and that it gives you a smooth surface once you roll it down. Once again, we'll lay it up, get a rough measurement. We'll snip it off. Snip that little tail off of there. Get it lined up about where you want. And touch down with the iron on that edge. Warm up the glue on that side. It doesn't take very long. It warms up pretty quick with the hot setting on the iron. And this edge banding that I got is actually a little bit thinner than my first batch, and it's actually a little bit narrower as well. So we almost have to have it exactly centered on the workpiece. And we'll give even pressure across. Don't let it sit in one spot too long. Okay. Make sure it's lined up where you want it, especially on your top side. And go ahead and press it down into place. And you want to roll it until it somewhat cools down, at least to the touch. Gives that glue a little bit extra adhesion. Make sure you do your edges, the corners, I guess I should say. Make sure they're good and pressed down so when you trim them they don't pop loose. Okay, that one's good. And we'll do one more. And yes, these pieces I made a mistake and pocket holed the wrong side, so I had to fill them. And I don't buy pocket hole plugs, I make my own, and all it is some 3/8 dowel that I make and cut them to about 2 inches long, and then I'll just flush cut them with flush cut saw. So they look kind of ugly right now, but it's on the bottom side, hidden, no big deal. Okay, so here's our length. Get it lined up where we want it. Remember, top side's on my side now, so gotta be careful of that. Okay, glue's melted on this edge. Press it down nice and firm. Make sure you get that corner. I like to kind of angle on the edges to make sure you got good adhesion on the edges. We'll go back across the whole thing. And on my iron, it's not particularly flat all the way across, especially when you get to the nose, so sometimes I have to go all the way to the middle of the iron in order to give that even pressure, but it works just fine. Keep it nice and even if you can with the top edge, the face side. Okay, and that's good. So we'll be back. I'll show you how to trim them. Alright, so we're back, and we want to start with the first one that we had done. So we know that it had enough time to cure. It's probably been sitting about 15 minutes. And what we're going to do is use a utility knife, making sure it's a pretty sharp one. And I like to nick the edge that's closest to you first. Get it all the way through. And then go straight across. Just a light pass, a couple light passes, get it through. Don't go through all the way on the first pass or you'll end up chipping it. And it's easy enough like that. Flip it around. And the reason I do this on this edge first is so when I make these passes through here, it doesn't splinter this side. And we'll set it aside like we did before. This edge banding is pretty fragile, so you want to take your time with it. Light passes. You'll hear it start cutting the fibers, and then you're through it. And anything that's not perfect, we can clean up with a little bit of sandpaper. And I'll leave that until we get to the point where we finish the rest of the faces with some 220 grit sandpaper. We'll do one more here, and I'll bring you back when I'm through. It's also pretty key to make sure that you're holding your board straight up and down, so that when you do put pressure down, you don't delaminate the glue from the edge. I've done that before, and you have to heat it back up and hope that the glue sticks again. So I'll finish up with these, and I'll bring you back for trimming the long edge. Alright, so we're back, and I'm going to show you how I trim the long side, long face of our edge banding. I use just a simple block plane, set pretty shallow. You don't want to take off too much at one time, just barely kissing the surface. Remember that we're going against the grain on this plywood, and if we dig into it too much, you're going to tear it out quite a bit, and it'll look pretty ugly. Seems like this is the face. So what I do is I'll go from one edge, and I'll kind of hold it at an angle this way from parallel to the top surface, and also hold the plane on a bit of an angle, and we'll just go across and take it off until we reach close to the surface of the workpiece. It may take a few more passes, but you're better off to take a little bit at a time than to hog off a whole bunch in one pass and do damage to the face of your workpiece. And we'll turn it around, and we'll come this way. Just take it right down to where you can't feel the edge with your finger. And this is why it's more critical when you are putting on your edge banding to leave less on the front face, the face of the wood, the show side, and leave more hanging on the back, and also the worst side of your board, so that when you do come back, you can take off a little bit more in a quicker fashion off the back side and not worry so much about what the appearance of it is, since it's going to be hidden from view. In my case, it's hidden from view anyway. It may not be in your situation. So if it isn't hidden from view in your situation, then you have to be pretty careful about how far you go down and how quickly. Just take your time with it, and it'll come out looking good. So we'll do one more, and then I'll bring it back when we're finished. So I'm on the bottom side again. I don't have to be as precise. Pretty good to me. Flip it over, and I've got it sitting on some cut off pieces of 3/4 plywood just to keep it up off of the table or off of the bench. Okay. So I'll finish up and I'll bring you back when I get them completed. Okay, so now that we have all of our edges trimmed down, there is another method that you can use to take down the excess from the edge of your plywood. You can use sandpaper if you would like. I find it difficult because running the sandpaper over the edge with that adhesive backing on it, it ends up gumming up your sandpaper pretty quickly. But once you get it trimmed down with that plane, it's much easier on your sandpaper and it lasts a lot longer. But I normally just take a few light passes on here just to try to even up the edge, take off any excess burrs, and then once I go and finish sand my faces and the back and everything, it'll even it out. But just to make sure you take off the burrs off of the very edge, and then you can also come up on your short sides and run that paper too. Make sure you don't pull away this direction, and always come back towards the workpiece and run that little corner off right there. You don't have to round it off, but just take any excess that is sticking up from when you trimmed it off with the knife. It's an easy way to take it off. And I always use 220, so it doesn't take off as much material as quickly, and you don't end up scarring your edge banding near as bad. So we'll finish this one up. And we'll call it good. Alright, thanks folks for watching, and we'll see you next time.